Greetings, everybody. Good evening, good morning, wherever you are. We are excited about our second webinar with many more coming up to cover up how to get started with ConfigureIT, the revolutionary mobile app development platform. As sent out with the agenda, the brief history, about today's topic is to cover the development of apps with ConfigureIT. We'll go through creating a sample application to see different components available within the platform, and we'll have a short question and answer session followed by the demonstration. To give you the introduction of the team here, I have a whole bunch of people besides me. My name is Jigar Panchal. I'm working with marketing. We've got Mr. Jigar Joshi, who is product manager, and we have Mr. Nilay Mehta, who is the lead technical. So basically, with any mobile application, there are a few considerable parts that you as a developer who will need to address. You will need to configure the application user interface. Then you need to configure the data structure, which holds your data in the backend. You define and integrate the business logic in the form of web service or APIs, and then you have an interface, maybe either web-based or mobile-based, where you can configure the data management console, maybe something which we generally refer to as the admin panel or the content management system. Those who have already registered and tried their hands out, they might be knowing something which we are going to cover, but something which you might want to know, that's what the agenda is for today's webinar, to cover up in detail about how you go about starting to develop apps with the ConfigureIT. Just in case you have any questions in your mind, just put up in the chat window and we'll cover that at the end of our demonstration. So let's go ahead and start with login. Just wanted to make sure that everybody can listen to me. If somebody cannot, just put your message in the chat window and make sure that you are all covered up. So let's start with the login function first. Once you log in, you'll see this dashboard. Let's go and create a new project. When we create a new project, you'll see a screen with some of the options that you need to mention to signify what kind of application is it. The most important part on this screen is the set of templates. These templates are fully functional apps developed with ConfigureIT, and they include the application user interface, complete set of APIs, as well as the backend, including the data structure and the sample data. These are the easiest way to get started to learn about what's possible with ConfigureIT, as they have everything pre-configured, which you can use as a base and create your own project. You can also, by the way, start with a blank project, but for the sake of simplicity and understanding, we'll select one of the templates. There's one of the template called movie MGO, which contains the listing of movies. So we'll take it as a base and then create a project based on the template. By the way, you could have also, there's one more option there where you can import one of the previous project that you have built with ConfigureIT. So you can export entire project that you have built with ConfigureIT and import it back again. What this process is creating, it is copying from the master application template the entire user interface for mobile screens, the backend, the database tables, APIs, and all the database configurations into your project, and then you can play around with it as you like. So that's what we are going to do now. It will take a bit of time because it's copying everything from the template. It's the whole project that is being copied. Okay. Now, once your template is copied, you need to provide a bit of more information, like you can import your assets and configure your splash screen and app icon. We'll just go to the project configuration. Now that your project is created, it will lead us to the actual configuration screen where you can compose the entire application user interface for the mobile app first. It is opening up the interface editor. This is the main interface where you would configure the application UI. As you can see, it is quite well versatile interface. It's a full-fledged visual editor, just like an Xcode that you would normally use in your desktop. But this one is in the browser with all the capabilities, with different panels and contextual sections and navigation with tons of features where you can save a lot of time at the time of configuration with different kinds of functionalities. It's extremely easy to get used to. It may sound overwhelming, but as you work on it, it will start making sense, and there are tons of options to get benefit for. So just to give you a basic idea of what components of interface mean. On the left-hand side, you see the list of screens with thumbnails, which shows all the screens that we derived from the template that we used to create the project, that is MGO. You can search and filter out the different screens and options for device if your app supports, like if your app supports iPad and iPhone both versions, you will see an icon there. You have the list of controls there besides the screens. Now all these controls are actual reflection of the native controls which you would normally find in iOS SDK. On top of it, we have developed exclusive controls which are normally not available in the iOS SDK. Controls like custom picker, with a toolbar with navigation, grid view, and rating view. All these controls are as easy as using any of the native controls with their own set of properties and configuration. You have the asset list on the left-hand side as well. One of the tabs has all the images that this particular screen contains. These are all the sprites that you had uploaded when you created the project. Since we have copied the template, it brought along all the assets that the project originally had, which you can modify. Coming back onto the right-hand side, you see some more icons there. First one is the data source. I'll come back to the data source, but basically it caters to the second and third point which I talked about while creating an app, which is to handle the data source and connecting the business logic to the specific screen. We'll cover this up in a bit when we go down to connecting the data with the screen. You have the miscellaneous settings there, which contains the generic options that applies to the entire application. Settings like the default page when you land up when you load an app, what page you would like or what screen you would like to configure, what screen you would like to use as a splash screen, and the other map options like whether you want to use the default Apple map on iOS or the custom Google map. It's just a switch that you have an option to make a choice for the map of your preference. There are tab settings as well. Now these tab settings are specifically to cover up a special feature when your app requires tabs at the bottom, which is something which you normally see in an App Store app or the Contacts app at the bottom where you have different options. We do have a demo of or a sample, so to say, with tabs configuration in one of the templates. It's called Trailers app, which you can use as a template to create a project and see how it all works out. So this is there are some more options. There are more advanced options. We'll just keep them for sake of simplicity. Let's go ahead and create a new screen. When you go to screen list, you hit the new button, and you see the options for creating new screens. Now, just like for creating the projects based on the templates, we have also got templates for specific screens. You have different type of screens that you need in the applications, like listing views and details, and maybe some kind of feeds that you want to show. You can use any of these screens which have pre-configured user interface and assets, so you don't have to create them again. And you can also see the thumbnail on the side. One of the unique features we have developed for creating screen is to be able to upload directly the PSD file or the Photoshop file which designers or user interface team generally uses. We have created an exclusive Photoshop plugin which once installed allows you to run that script on the Photoshop document containing the user interface, and it automatically slices all the sprites required as per the application. One of the prerequisites with this is you have to make your Photoshop document and layer naming conventions based on the ConfigureIT standards, which is available in the help section, which you can refer. It saves a lot of time. So generally what you do is you compose the user interface in Photoshop, you manually decompose, and then you work with developers to recompose those screens back again into the application user interface. We are completely eliminating this cycle where you can instantly upload the interface from Photoshop to the ConfigureIT screens to create the screens on the fly. Just so that you know, in the help section of the documentation with PSD, you can also find the sample Photoshop document which you can use as a base to just try out to see how it all works out. So that was about creating new screen. Now let's go ahead and see one of the pre-configured screens and see how it looks like. We are looking at one of the screen which contains the information about how the movie detail will get shown up. So you can see that there is a trailer option which will show up the YouTube video, and then there is some more information related to the movie, like movie title, the type of movie is, and the cast and the storyline. If you select any control, in this case we have selected a UI label control, which is defined as a gravity text. Once you select it, you see the panel which shows the different properties of the UI label. Now all these properties are specific to this control, the type of control that is UI label, and there you see the all the properties that you would normally get in your Xcode. On top of it, we have also built the custom properties which you would normally not find as a configuration in the Xcode, for which you have to code manually. Here, something like you can find the rotation angle, where you want to rotate a label to a specific angle. So you can find such kind of properties in there. One of the other part of the selected label is the action. Now actions are more like triggers, and it helps you define a specific action based on the specific event that happens on this control. We have covered all the events and gestures that iOS by default supports, which you can configure for further actions. You can also define different actions based on different conditions. You can merge different conditions on a specific event. So once you click on that, you see the configuration for different cases and conditions and what actions you want to take when something happens to that control. So that's more about the application user interface workspace. You can configure the entire application UI with the app console. As you can see, there are also a lot of functions and features which allows you to configure the user interface with a lot of alignment options, arrangement options, copy paste, and there are also contextual menus which you can easily use to for productive user interface configuration. Now let's cover up the second part to define the data structure. To configure your app's backend or the SQLite data structure, which is used for offline data, you go to the backend link at the top in the application user interface configuration. There's a link for the backend which will lead you to a separate window where you can manage all the database and all the backend. This is a dashboard which contains a quick handy actions where you can define database and APIs and your data panels. The entire backend contains options for database, as I said, as well as your interface options for admin panel, more popularly known in our system as data panel, scheduler like cron jobs, workflow, notifications, you have email templates, and there are basically tons of other features which makes your entire application backend smarter and rich in terms of user experience. In today's session, just to stay focused on simple steps, we'll go through the data, that is DB configuration and API, and a brief overview of data panel. Let's go if time permits. So let's dive into the DB configuration. When you go to the database configuration, either by going to the menu or on the dashboard link, you see all the list of database tables that the system has generated. Now remember, we copied the template of mgo to create this project. It has brought all the tables that were pre-configured in mgo template and set it up here. On top of it, there are some system tables as well, which ConfigureIT has created, which we advise not to modify unless you exactly know what you are doing. So these are all the tables. Detail of a table to see all the fields that the database table contains. You can add new fields from the field templates. Now again, there are a set of pre-configured templates, more like email address and image field. Generally, you would need to maintain all these by yourself if you were to deal with any database system. But here, you have all the field templates, which is highly integrated and tightly integrated with the database panel as well. So when you have a field here for email in the front end of the database interface console, you don't need to worry about validations to put in the email manually because you have created a field for email. When you add a new field, or let's say edit a field, you can also edit the different data types available. Now all these data types are preliminary data types provided by MySQL. You have this is completely MySQL driven database. So all the data types and validations that you see here are based out of the standards as defined by MySQL standards, and it is happening real time behind the scenes. As you create a table or add a table or a field or modify a field, it is actually reflecting those changes in the backend in the real time as a MySQL database operation. We also support creating offline apps, so you can configure your entire SQLite database just like you would configure your MySQL database right here in the browser. You can download the entire SQLite database and put it into your app. You also have an option to copy your entire database from MySQL to an SQLite. A lot of time you need a functionality to be able to have a better synchronization between the server-side data and the offline data on the device end, just to make sure that you have same database. To effortlessly create the same reflection of the server-side database, you can use these to copy the MySQL tables as well. So this was the database. Now let's go to business logic defining. The business logic in ConfigureIT terminology is defined as an API. Now let's take a pause for a moment and think of an API. Any API in the form of source code contains database queries, conditions, loops, control structures, and your special actions which you want to trigger based on certain conditions. We have gone back to the basics of programming, and we have created an innovative visual editor for building business logic as an API, which provides full capabilities without writing the code. So let's go to one of the sample APIs in the existing project to see how it all looks like. This is your entire visual editor where you can configure your entire application logic or business logic, so to say, as a flow chart. You can see different nodes here where you can have different operations within the flowchart. Options like query, you can put your conditions, you can define your own variables as well and make them act as a container in between the code logic. You can have your own loops. You can even have your own PHP custom functions where you have option to define your own business logic or specific functions like encryption to take care of the data transmission. So let's try one thing here. Let's create a sample API to see how it all works seamlessly and how easy it is to create APIs with ConfigureIT. We'll create an API to fetch a specific movie detail from the already defined database which contains a list of movies. So we'll create a new API, define an input parameter where we will pass the specific movie ID as an input parameter. We'll keep as an required field as a validation. Out of all the validations pre-configured, depending on the type of data type, you hit next, and then you'll end up into the actual configuration screen where you put your logic. Now we want to fire a query to the movie table where we want to seek for a specific movie detail based on the input parameter we received. So we'll select the table, and we want to define how many maximum records we want to fetch. In this case, we'll just want to have one record because it's a single movie. We'll hit next. Now, since we selected the movie detail table, it has brought here all the fields that were defined in the movie table. We can just select these fields, whatever field we want in the query, just so that we can put it out into the output. And you can define your own configuration on the specific fields. You can add or remove the fields in the runtime while you configure the query. It's more like the old days of MySQL where you can configure your query. You can add your own custom fields as well as a part of aggregate function of query. Hit save and next. Now in the where condition, we want to match whether the input parameter is the same as the movie ID stored in the database. We want to put out a condition like a field of master movie ID is same as movie ID we received from as an input parameter, and you can match any of the conditions based on the requested parameters, just like any or all. You can have your own extra conditions as well, like you want to have your own conditions based beyond what the pre-configured fields bring along with. You can put your own conditions as well. We don't need a group by option because it's a very simple query. Hit save and next. We don't need having condition. Just hit save and next, and we don't need order by as well because it's going to fetch a single record. Now once this is done, seems like we are done, but since it's a flowchart, we need to tell the system whether we are done with our logic or not. And since we are not done, it is showing us a validation in real time that the query or the business logic is still incomplete or invalid rather. So we'll want to have a finish tab which signifies how and what information we want to throw as an output, as a response to this API. So you can select all those fields that you selected in the query as part of checkbox available here. You can select or edit the response variable name as well. And you can also pass on the specific success code as well as the custom message to define and proper handling of the API. Just hit finish, and then you are done without writing a single code. Your query is done. And let's go ahead and check whether it works or not. So right above the configuration, you have an option to test the API to be able to see whether it works or not. Let's pass on the movie ID 5 and hit debug. There are two options, execute and debug. Debugging allows you to see all the raw queries that were fired while putting out the information. As you can see, the entire output is in the form of a JSON string which contains the movie detail as per the variables that you selected as an output. You can simply execute as well just to see how the output data, which is again something which you can use to debug and pass on to the developers if in case required, if the system. Now the benefit of this system is these APIs can also be used outside the ConfigureIT as well. Just to demonstrate, I want to emphasize that it's not just mobile, but the equal power of backend, where you can utilize the power of these features to develop smart systems without doing coding and use it in the external systems. The beauty of this API interface is again backed by the extensive reusability. So any API that you develop in ConfigureIT, you can reuse the API in any other project, and you don't have to code them all over again. And you can also use either the entire API or maybe a set of blocks, something like your custom functions or queries or complex queries that you have built here as a part of a single node. You can reutilize the same node in another query. We have also got one of the most efficient way to connect any system with ConfigureIT, and that is with API connector. Now, API connectors allow you to integrate any third-party API which is not built inside ConfigureIT and bring on the data from external system to this system, or vice versa, like passing on the information to any other system outside ConfigureIT developed project. We have already got a few systems integrated. We have integrated services like Facebook, Foursquare, Instagram, and YouTube. And we are continuously adding more services for one-click connection, just so that you can connect your application and make it more feature-rich and connected to the other services. You can also have your own custom APIs, something like, for example, you want to connect your application to the enterprise database, which you don't want to export, but just want to have an API level access. You can have your own APIs called upon here. And this is supporting both XML APIs and JSON-driven APIs, including REST support as well. So that's all about business logic and API. You have endless possibilities with all the options there, with features inside the ConfigureIT and ability to connect to any third-party systems as well. Now that we have configured the application UI, we have seen how the database is configured, and we have seen how the APIs are developed as a part of business logic. We'll go down to the critical step of connecting the application user interface, which is dead as of now, and connect them with the business logic or the API that we built. So in example, in the case of movie detail screen, we would like to see how the movie detail screen fetches the data from this API that we just created. So let's go to the movie detail screen, back into the mobile app configuration. What you're seeing is the movie detail screen. Now, something which I referred to at the beginning with data source, on the right hand side, the topmost icon shows what data sources are connected to this particular screen. Now, these data sources are more like your funnels through which the data is either brought to the screen or passed on to the database. We have already configured data source for the screen as a part of fetching the movie detail. Once you edit the movie detail data source, you see the list of APIs that you created in the backend as a part of drop-down. Once you select an API, it will contextually show at the bottom the input parameter options for invoking that API as a data source. It could be any value stored in the session variable as a part of application UI. It could be any device-specific parameter like an accelerometer value or anything. Or once you define the input parameter, there is a second part which, once the data source is invoked, like in other words, when the API is executed, what will happen to the output parameters? So you'll want to map the output parameters of the API against a specific container. It could be a form object, or more like a control, or it could be the session variable where you want to just store it just to be able to use it into other screen. Once you select a form object, you see all the list of controls that you have in this particular screen and map that control to contain the output value that you got from the API. Now this is just a definition of the data source. When this will actually fired will have to be defined in the Actions tab when you select a particular control. Now, as a part of any control, we saw there are two options. One is the properties and actions. Now this action part is what actually defines when the data source will get fired. Now, either you can fire the data source on specific controls options like a click of a button, or maybe on the load of a screen. Let me close that down for a second. So in our scenario, when a specific screen, in this case the movie detail screen, loads upfront, immediately we want to fire a query to fetch the movie detail. So in this scenario, we'll select the object tree on the left hand side and select the main view. Now call the API, which will bring us the information about a specific movie. So let's click on that and we see which data source we want to fire. So the action we will call is the web service call on top and select the data source. Now in others, there may be a case where you don't want to just call on the data source but want to have some different action. So you see some other actions defined as well. You want to have your Facebook APIs or Twitter API, something you want to just share with Facebook, or you want to change the object response. You can do that from here. Or you want to maybe redirect the user to a specific screen. You want to invoke a call option, SMS option. There are a bunch of options basically that you can see here, which would normally require something like you want to show an alert. So there are, as you can see, the tons of options there besides just calling the web service. In this case, we just want to call the web service. So we'll select a web service call and select the data source that we defined thus for this particular screen. So we have concluded the entire cycle of defining the application UI, configuring the database, and configuring the business logic as a part of API. And then we also saw how to integrate the business logic with the specific screen user interface. Now let's see how the actual app looks like in the device. So as you might be familiar with, we have got our own preview app to see in real time how your app looks like when you configure it inside the browser. So here's what you see as in part of the preview app, which shows you the different projects that you already have in your account, and you also have an option to see the pre-built templates. Now these are the same templates that you saw at the time of creating a new project. You can see and preview these templates before you actually go about creating. So you might want to just check out how these templates work before you actually go about creating a project. We highly recommend, because these are all templates 100% built with ConfigureIT without writing single line of code. So you just might want to explore that to see the capabilities of what could be done as a part of creating fully functional dynamic apps powered by Backend. So let's select our project in this case to see how the demo looks like. Okay, once you select a project, you can hit the preview app and it will show you the options whether you want to use the last downloaded version of the app stored in this device, or you want to get the most updated version from the server. Now, you might have done a lot of changes before you actually saw the preview, since last time you want to get the most updated version. In this case, you will see you'll use the second option, or you can, you haven't made any such changes. You want to just review the last downloaded version, you can do so as well, just to save the bandwidth. Most updated version takes a bit of time because it downloads everything from the server, recompiles the project in real time in the cloud, and you can see it in real time here on the device. As you can see, this is the template that we had copied from, so it shows us everything. Let's go to the movie details screen. This is the same screen that we were working with, and let's see if you want to try something by changing and see how it all works out in real time. Configuration screen. Okay, now you see the configuration screen which contains the movie detail, and let's make some changes. Let's make the text color of the movie title to maybe a pale yellow. Yeah. And let's change the title of movies in the navigation bar to something more like movie detail. Double click on it and you can change it to movie detail. Or maybe let's just see if we can put out the variable so that the movie title is displayed in the title instead of movie detail as a static. So let's find out what variable it is. It's M movie name. So we'll just assign this label, one of the variables that we got from the web service response. These are all the parameters. We'll assign the movie name here. And that's it. By the way, we don't have save button, so all that you work on in real time is saved onto the server. So practically you are never left with anything undone. So let's go back to the preview app. What you see is something, the state of the screen before the change. Now, normally in this case, if you were working with Xcode, what you would need to do is save the changes, compile the entire build, maybe review it in simulator, or you might want to see it on the device. In the case of device, you would need to compile the IPA file, migrate or install the IPA file to the device using maybe iTunes Connect or over-the-air installation, and then go over to the detailed set of screens to be able to reach here, and then see whether the change is reflected or not, and even if it is reflected, it is right or wrong. In the case of PreviewIT, you are not leaving the screen. You just swipe across with double fingers, and you can instantly see the change, which is compiled in real time into the server. You can use this floating icon of ConfigureIT and hit the refresh screen as well, or maybe swipe it with double fingers. We'll hit the refresh screen, and it is refreshing this screen in real time right here without having you to go back and come back again. It made all the changes. You see the movie title got in yellow, as well as it assigned the variable at the top. This is how easy it is. That's okay. Some of the other options with PreviewIT we have covered up is to be able to have the better experience of working with such a nice functionality of reviewing everything in real time. So there is an option in your account where you can share this PreviewIT app with anybody to be able to log in as a preview user specifically for specific projects, and they can review your work. It could be your client, or it could be your maybe testing or QA team who wants to review the work as you put it together. So in the preview section of the configuration, you can add specific preview users, and they will be able to log in and then see the specific project, in this case this project only, and provide you the feedback. Now, how do they provide a feedback? Let's switch back to the preview app. In the preview app, you have options for taking notes on specific screen or for the entire project. When you take a note, it automatically captures the current state of the screenshot. You can put in a title and write your description, maybe as in part of feedback or a comment, and then submit. Let's type something here. Okay. Now we can also attach a screenshot, or you can just upload the note without attaching a screenshot. We can also select a recording as well. Let this finish up. Okay. Now this note will get reflected into your configuration screen, just so that the developer knows about what the comment was made and they can reply back. So it's more like a threaded communication based on specific screen, or you can also choose to have a project specific discussion as well. There's an option for recording the entire video as well in the PreviewIT app. So in the PreviewIT, one of the options allow you to record your browsing experience. Many a times we want to replicate a scenario which happens in certain conditions, and you want to capture that entire sequence of navigation along with the information that you see on the screen. It gets difficult to record, and you might not have another device to record what exactly going on in the device. So this feature allows you to record the entire screen session and upload it back again for the developer to see along with the comments as well. So let's see how the notes look like. There's one of the options on the right-hand panel where you can see all the notes taken. The note that we took is now available here for review along with the screenshot that we uploaded. You can see the same screen that we uploaded from the PreviewIT app. So it gets immensely easier for debugging and identifying and sort out the minor issues that may happen during the user acceptance testing phase. So it's more like a facilitator feature for your bug tracking system. So this is how basically you work with ConfigureIT to conclude the session. Just to reiterate what we covered up, we saw how to configure the application user interface. We saw the database tables, which are completely a MySQL-driven database system, including support for SQLite. We also saw configuring the APIs in the form of business logic with visual flowchart. We also saw how Preview app works with effortless previewing of the work in progress and sharing that with other team members and how fruitful it can be. There's a lot in there, pictures, because of the basic features, and make sure the application feature reach as well as smarter. The entire platform not only saves a lot of time for developing an app, but also gives you instantly reusable modules, which is at the center of the whole platform, where you can reutilize everything from a field to an entire project. You can reuse everything in your next project from database tables and API and UI components. And the best part is when you are done with your app, you can download the IPA file, which is generated in the cloud. So practically you can work on any computer from anywhere, and you don't necessarily require a Macintosh system to work with iOS application. You can also download the fully extendable source code, which can further customize something like you want to add in your app, which is not provided out of the box by ConfigureIT. For example, you want to add an augmented reality feature into your app. You can build your entire application with ConfigureIT and add on top of what you already built with ConfigureIT, add an augmented reality library and extend the project. So you can save a lot of time in doing something which is not so smart, but extremely time-savvy work, which you can do in ConfigureIT and extend it back again. This whole platform, this way, now not just gives you saving of time, but gives you full freedom to develop whatever you want on top of using the platform. We are concluding the webinar, and we are open to have any questions that you might have. You can put your questions in the chat window. So one of the questions we have received, how string manipulation related PHP functions can be used in API. Let me show you the demo. Let's go back to the API. Let's switch to the backend for a moment. You go edit any of the APIs. Let's see if we want to modify how one of the fields from output parameters or query can be modified using PHP functions. So in this case, if you want to change the movie name and apply specific string functions like str to uppercase, we want the movie name in the uppercase, we can use the str to upper functions which PHP provides, and just mention that here, and then it will fire and include into the actual query. You get all the functions of PHP that you would normally use. There is a list of functions. And you can also have the system-defined functions as well. I hope that answers the question. Okay, we have got another question regarding WordPress. Is it possible to import online JSON from a WordPress web? Process it, and give it to mobile users? Okay, so we have an option to integrate the WordPress APIs using the API connector feature in the API, which we saw. So in the API connector option, as I mentioned earlier, you can practically call any third-party APIs. You can define the URL of the WordPress APIs, and then you can define what kind of API it is and map the input parameters and use it as an option to use as one of the node, and finally put as an output to be able to give to the mobile app. So basically, yes, there is an option with API connector that you can use with WordPress. Okay, we have a next question. Can I copy tables from other apps or projects to current project? Yes, of course. You can copy a set of tables from any other project that you have worked with the new project. Also, when you have copy table from other apps, you also have an option to copy the tables from remote server. So there is an option in the backend where you can configure your remote servers, where you need to mention the database details so that our system can connect to the database. And once you do that, you go to the database configuration and hit import database, where you can select the list of tables you have remotely defined and do a selective copy from the remote server. Okay, we have a next question. We saw we had a choice between iOS and Android, where you can get the choice while using the free version at the moment. So right now, the Android is soon going to be released in private beta. We are still working on. We are already working with very selected people, and we are still trying to refine it so before releasing it to the public. If you are interested in trying it out, go ahead and put out your request in the support, and whenever we have enough slots, we'll put the released version, and we'll send you a special invitation when we are ready to accommodate more people. Thank you. Okay, one more question that we have is how do we interact with the logs of smartphone? Um, we didn't find any specific needs of logs, but if you have any specific cases where you want to see the logs, please put a support ticket and our tech team will. Can I use the piece of my already written code somewhere, maybe in PHP? So with backend, you have an option just like mobile app. You have an option to download the backend code when you have sufficient privileges. Once you download the code, you can put in your own customization. But in case where you are not feeling the need of downloading the code and you want to use only for selective functions, you already have the options to call out the custom functions in your APIs and queries. Just so that you know, just to clarify my point, you cannot use PHP functions inside the mobile configuration. It is only for the backend. Do I need to create separate projects for Android and iOS? Well, I can imagine the curiosity when it comes down to the question for Android. And that's exactly what we have been working hard to make it as effortless as possible. To answer your question, you won't need to create separate projects for Android and iOS. Your same configurations for iOS will work for Android. However, as you would expect, Android having a lot of resolutions and form factors to deal with, you'll have different options for different resolutions where you might need to configure the user interface to an extent. And but that's only for the visual part. If your situation is such that where your Android and iOS application is with exact set of screens with the same functionality, all your business logic or the logical configuration like actions and data sources will be inherited automatically. So all you need to work on is to configure the user interface part where you want to align the controls specific to the form factor, and that saves a lot of time. But that's all in private beta, as I said. We'll want to release it as soon as possible for the public. We are still trying it out with a finite number of people. Okay, we have a next question. Does ConfigureIT gets updated with every update on platforms like iOS? Well, yes, of course, because we want to make sure that the applications that are produced by ConfigureIT is according to the standards which is available as the latest firmware or the SDK. So we continuously try with the betas as well that comes out as a developer, and try to improvise as soon as possible the firmware and the final SDKs are released. Do you provide the source code of API and is it easy to modify them? Yes, you have an option to download the entire source code of your project, including the API source code. So when we say about source code, it includes the complete backend source code with MySQL database, your Xcode project as an iOS project, and the source code for API as well. The backend source code is based in PHP, based on the CodeIgniter framework, which is easy to modify. Can I integrate PayPal payment gateway? Yes, as I said in the API section, you can practically integrate any third-party API, as I said, which provides you the API interfaces for you to consume. Either it could be REST-based API or it could be JSON or XML. So PayPal does provide several APIs which you can integrate in your business logic with the help of API section. Just so that you know, we are also working on direct integration with PayPal mobile SDK, so that you can integrate your app with mobile SDK of PayPal with one click. But that's still not available yet. We're still working on it. We'll announce it whenever we have that available. I can still accommodate a couple of questions. Because I was almost running out. Okay, so we have a couple of people who are not able to have clear audio. We just want to let you know that this entire webinar is being recorded, and we'll upload this webinar on our YouTube channel for everyone to see, and you can refer to all these questions and including the demonstration that we showed on the YouTube channel. You can follow us on YouTube with youtube.com/ConfigureIT. So we have a question about handling the JSON string as an input parameter for API. So we saw the option for having a simple input parameter with API, but you can also have a JSON input as well. That's a bit of complex process which would be difficult to explain here on the webinar. There's a documentation available. You might want to go ahead and search for that, and if you don't find, put out a request in support and then you can search for that. We also have got video for that on the YouTube channel just to see how JSON input string can be handled. Right, yeah, I know we might not have covered all the questions, but I feel that we have covered a lot many items. Just to give you final inputs on where you can find out more information, we have got dedicated help center which is accessible from our website, which contains all the getting started kit, the reference manuals, documentation, videos, and the latest release notes as well. And there's also a YouTube channel which you can refer to see the different demonstration videos, to see how each piece of configuration works. We are continuously increasing this library to have more and more videos which you can refer to before you go about configuration. We highly encourage you to review this so that you can get an idea of how it all works out. All right, thanks everyone. I hope you had an informative session. Again, feel free to contact us with support ticket in case you have any questions, and we encourage you to continue to use the platform and get most out of your free trial, which is allowing you to do everything in the system and doesn't restrict you for the most part anywhere else. Just again, provide your feedback, and we will be glad to accommodate everything as a good solution. Thanks everyone. Have a good day. Have a good night.